All right. So, the three most famous jugglers of all time are Paul Cinquevalli, uh, Enrico Rastelli, and Francis Brun. And although I don't have props from Rastelli or Cinquevalli, and I'm working on it, I do have their autographs and their busts right here. I don't know if you can see the autograph there because it's in black. Uh, and the Rastelli autograph here was from about a week before he died. So probably one of his last autographs. So, but I do have props from Francis Brun. This spinning ball here is Francis's, and that hat and these shoes are Francis's, and that red ring and the red ball and the pedestal there. Those are all Francis Brun's. And then I've got props from Francis's sister Lottie Brun, one of the most famous female jugglers of all time. I've got her spinning ball, her what she uses as clubs, one of her rings, three of her balls there. And then Lottie's son, Michael Sherrick, I've got a soccer ball and a mouse stick and a torch from him. And then Francis and Lottie had a half brother, Ernest Montego. And I've got all these and these props from him. And he was also one of the greatest jugglers of all time. So, I even had the three balls that he learned to juggle with as a child. So that's pretty great. Next shelf down is Gil Dova, famous comedy juggler from the 60s and 70s and 80s. I have more or less all the props he used in his act right there. And below that is Rudy Cardenas, the greatest Mexican juggler of all time. He's the juggler that popularized shaker cup juggling. And I've got one of those shaker cups there. He was known as the Little Rastelli. Here we've got Bobby May, one of the most famous jugglers of all time, most famous American vaudeville juggler. His derby hat, I've got two of his top hats. This red ball was a ball that he, when he did ice skating shows, he would skate around the rink and do head rolls with that ball. And here's a statue of Bobby May. And this is his prop trunk as well. And then these are Bobby May's. So this is his, those are his clubs. And then this is his famous head pedestal. He would put his hands here, put his head there, kick himself up so his legs were up in the air like that. And then he would grab these five balls, and there would be a drum down here, and he would juggle them off the drum in time with the music. And so having this is pretty amazing. And then I've got his fake umbrella here. And then this was his practice donut that in his hotel room he would put this on the floor and he would practice doing the headstand with that. So it's pretty amazing that I've got all this Bobby May stuff. The next shelf down, these are the three most famous gentleman jugglers. Gentleman jugglers would mainly use the things you would find in a Victorian gentleman's home. And so Salerno, Cara, and Adonis, Felix Adonis. Now, one of the only things that Salerno used that wasn't something you would find in a Victorian gentleman's home was this. And this is an amazing prop. This is a lighted juggling club from 1906. And you would press this button to turn it on and off. And I will show you the insides of it. You had a very early flashlight battery here, and you had 4 bulbs. You can see this one still there, and you had some more up there. And this is a translucent, like cheesecloth covered, resin covered cheesecloth. And so that's pretty neat. And the fact that this still exists in one piece is pretty amazing. He also invented, he in addition to being an incredible juggler, he was a really great inventor. And he invented this, which is a self-lighting candle. So it would be in a candlestick, and he would flick it up, and when it got to this position, there is a mercury switch inside. So an early flashlight battery and then a mercury switch. And so when the mercury would complete the circuit when it was in this position, and there was a flash bulb ignited here. So what he would do is it would be in the candlestick, he'd flick it up, it would go to here, it would light, and it would continue flipping, and he would catch it balanced on his head. And we have photos of him doing that trick. And if you want to see the insides, I can show you the inside. Very careful with this because it's one of a kind. You can see the mercury mercury in there. So that's pretty neat. This, along with that plate of Salerno's, are the 2 oldest known plastic juggling props. This is Bakelite, the first form of plastic. And so that's pretty amazing. And then Cara, however you pronounce it, Michael Cara, those 2 plates back there belong to him. Actually, they have an incredible story. They originally belonged to Salerno, but then Cara was a prisoner of war during World War I, and when he got released, he had no props. And so Salerno lent him all of his extra props, or gave him all of his extra props, including those 2 plates. And then from Cara, they went to Bobby May, and then eventually to me. That's pretty. Those 2 plates there were owned by 3 of the most famous jugglers of all time: Salerno, Cara, and Bobby May. Here we have props from 4 of the most famous women jugglers of all time. Jenny Jager, the rings and the ball there. Trixie, that's one of her plates. She would juggle 6 of those plates while bouncing a ball on her head, while ice skating, while being blinded by 4 follow spots. And then Eva Vita. And then Selma Bratz. Selma Bratz was the first internationally famous woman juggler. And that is a color-changing torch that she had. And we have photos of her juggling that. And so that's pretty amazing. Below that, we have another color-changing torch from Frank Ledent. Frank Ledent was, I call him the forgotten juggler, because in 1908, he was performing 11 balls and 9 plates on stage. And it completely went by everyone. It was completely forgotten by historians. He became better known for doing comedy and doing top hats, and yet he was 100 years ahead of his time by doing 11 balls, and no one else has done 9 plates. So that's pretty crazy. And then we had Picasso Jr. and his dad, Grand Picasso. And then below that we have Chris Cremo, top hat and derby hat, Rob Murray, and Michael Motion. So, if this was all I had, this would still be an incredible collection. But that's just the start. Up here we have uh, props from the greatest Chinese jugglers that we're aware of. The Chin brothers, which looks like Quan, but it's Chin brothers, and Zhongman Lin. Um, those are the standard Chinese juggling rings. Um, and then here we have all the greatest Soviet and Russian jugglers. So we've got Alexander Kiss up top. He's kind of the father of Soviet jugglers. And almost everything he did in his act, every day in his act, is stuff that no one in the world right now could do. It's crazy. And then we have two clubs from Sergei Ignatov. We have, yep. They look horrible, but that's what he used every day. And then we've got Truzzi, who was a student of Rastelli. These are all Truzzi props. So even before Kiss. We've got props from Evgeny Belauer, who was a contemporary of Ignatov and easily one of the best club jugglers of all time. And then we've got two clubs from Gregory Popovich. And then we have props from Vladimir Postakov and his dad and his dad's partner. And then here we have various European jugglers. Rudy Horn, super famous juggler. Danilo Medini, Dieter Tasso, Alberto Sforzi, Chiesa brothers. I could go into detail about all these people if you want. Rudy Schweitzer down there, Charles Kerrer, and then the cousins Manuel and Pepito Alvarez. Up top, we've got a hat from Gregory Popovich and a hat from Natalie Interline. And then we have hats from Tuan Lee, one of the greatest hat jugglers of all time, up there. And then we have the Riveros brothers. They were two French brothers that started in 1918, and they did amazing things. One of them specialized in juggling while doing a headstand. He was the inspiration for Bobby May to learn that. And the other brother did amazing things on a slack wire. And then we have Freddie Kenton. Freddie is the oldest still performing juggler in the world. And Luli Perizov. She was a child prodigy. While she was a young teenager, she could do 8 balls in the air and 8 balls off of a drum. Yeah. Chris Holt and her dad Bert Holt. Bert was used this apparatus here there'd be a piece of leather on the end of this, and he would bite down onto it, and then they would lift him up in the air, way up in the air, and he would do his whole act hanging by his iron jaw. And then his daughter Chris is the most famous hair hanging juggler of all time. So they would hook her hair into a similar apparatus and haul her up and she would do her act. Down bottom, we've got Gus and Ursula Lappe, famous German-American jugglers. Ursula was the inspiration for Lottie to become a solo artist. And then we've got some clubs over here clubs and ping pong balls from Tony Furcos. He's the